Agriculture is the production of animals, plants, and crops humans need to sustain life. So it is as basic a necessity as oxygen and water are. Humans need to eat, and agriculture provides us beef, poultry, wheat, produce, vegetables, and many other vital crops. Before the Industrial Revolution, the majority of people worked in agriculture, but today, agriculture has become a very advanced, automated, and much less labor-intensive operation, but it remains as important, because without agriculture, we'd all be harvesting our own essential food. The world's population is approaching 7 billion people, and producing food for that many people is a challenge. That challenge is increased when a lot of the food that is produced, like grains, also feeds things humans eventually eat like cows, chickens, and pigs. Then today, a big percentage of harvested corn now doesn't feed humans, but rather supplies biofuels. Today, people in the industrialized world believe that supermarket shelves will always be loaded with a selection of food. But that isn't the guarantee people think it is, especially with an ever-expanding population needing more food from the same amount of land. Irrigation is a big part of agriculture because crops need water. Irrigation has been around since the start of crop cultivation, but today almost 60% of used fresh water is used in crop irrigation. And although advances have been made, a lot of that water ends up being wasted, especially by evaporation. A lot of irrigation water comes from underground aquifers, which today in many places are being overdrafted, meaning used faster than they are being replenished. So these water sources can run dry. This is especially true in desert and arid regions that lack groundwater but grow crops. Water is also used from visible rivers and lakes, but those too can dry up with drought. Raising livestock for human consumption uses a lot of resources. Livestock needs land to live and graze on, which uses about 70% of land that is used for agriculture. Then livestock are living animals, so they need water, which adds up to a lot of water over their life. To produce 1 pound of steak, about 2,500 gallons of water are needed. It is also reported that half the water used in the United States goes to raising animals for food. Also, livestock eat a lot of the grain that is produced. Then cattle emit methane, which is a powerful greenhouse gas. It is reported that about 30% of human-induced methane is from raising cattle for human consumption. The diversity of crop seeds is so important, there are seed storage places around the world that are guarded to protect seed diversity. Decades ago, seeds were natural and diverse, but today, seeds are genetically modified in laboratories to ensure that planted seeds are the same, so they will produce the biggest crop yields, which if all goes as planned, they can. Problem is, genetically modified seeds are identical to each other, so if a fungus, virus, or pests attack the field, it can wipe out an entire harvest. Today, Agriculture's 101 standard operating procedure is to use fertilizers and pesticides to increase crop yields. Fertilizers provide nutrients that crops need to grow, improving the amount of harvested crops. Pesticides kill pests that would otherwise attack and kill crops, potentially wiping out an entire year's harvest. However, it is reported that even though the use of pesticides has increased significantly since the 1950s, crop loss from pests has remained relatively constant. One problem is pests become resistant to pesticides, which means we are always going to need new pesticides. But thing is, Fertilizers and pesticides get into freshwater supplies, which become municipal drinking water supplies. The future of at least plant and crop agriculture may not be in the farms of the Midwest, but rather in high-rises in cities where indoor vertical crop growing is being experimented with. This would produce the food people need in an indoor ecosystem. This allows conditions to be perfect because temperature, irrigation, and lighting are regulated, so they are always what is needed. This also has food being grown where it will be eaten, which will reduce the polluting and greenhouse gas emitting transportation today's harvest have to go through to get to stores where people buy them.